testing. What is the matter?
Hi, Mark.
What is going on?
Yeah, we're about 10 minutes early. Always better to be early than late.
Oh, hmm?
Hi, Esther. How are you doing?
How about you? I'm sorry. How about you? Okay,
Doing okay.
good.
Hi, do you have the capacity to make me host or co-host, anybody?
Yeah, Daniel should be able to do that. And I will
You can hear me?
Sure can.
Yeah.
I can't figure out how to test my sound.
Who said that?
Who
Ugh,
said?
Who said
why am I having so many problems?
who said that? I can't say, who said that?
Mark, was that you?
No, it's not me.
No, it was a man's voice.
Yeah, it was a man.
Hi, Esther Sade.
I
I can't hear anybody else. Jeez.
Well, Mark,
I give up.
Mark, we can hear you, but you can't hear us. Okay, it should be better. You're like frozen. You're going in and out of frozen.
I can't hear anybody.
Okay, Charna,
It's
you
still
should be
hooked up.
host now according to the chat.
Indeed, I am.
Good.
Start on time. Hello. For those of you who don't know me, how do you do? I'm Rabbi Charna Rosenholtz. I am excited to look at chapter 2. Is anybody new to Pirkei Avot? Is anybody studying it for the first year? All right, I'll take that as a no. So great. So you've all looked at some of these texts before. You know how you kind of know what's going on. Let's start with the Torah study blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu. All right, I'm going to be muting people. Yeah. So you can definitely just unmute yourself at any time. I don't mind discussion, but when what just happened, we get these private conversations and we'll forget that we're a community. So let's start again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Indeed, amen. And so, Ruth, I don't know if you've studied Pirkei Avot before. This might be your first time. And so definitely welcome. Let me just say a few opening words about it. That you know, the Mishnah and the Gemara, the Talmud. Oh, hi, Miriam. Hi, Ruth. Both of them were written a long time ago. Of course, the Mishnah came first. It was part of that oral law that was finally recorded after the destruction of the temple. And I think, admit. And there's something that we don't often think of when we think of these texts, and that is they were not written with a kind of Western Aristotelian logic that we, that the Western mind has been created, has been formed. Our minds are very much oriented towards the Aristotelian logic that is very sequential. Everything is in an order, and I would call it quite linear. The logic of the Talmud and certainly of the Mishnah is more circular. It's a different way of thinking. And for us to really step inside of it, we have to shake off a little bit that like how we're used to thinking. And so I want us to keep in mind as we go into some of these texts, what it really calls for is something that a kind of svara, a deep informed moral intuition. That's really at the heart of this. And you're actually really trying to tap into that moral intuition. Let's be honest, my friends. There's a lot of wisdom in this room right now. I am here, sitting here, as facilitator with a title of rabbi, but I'm not the wise guy in the room. We are the wise guys in the room. And so we're going to look at these texts. We're going to allow our own inner moral intuition inform us and speak from there. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say to start. I do want to say from chapter 1, which came next week, we are now, we've gone, we've jumped ahead a little bit. We're not so much talking about Hillel and Shammai anymore. We're talking, oh yay, goody gumdrops. Yehudis is coming. She'll be here soon, as well as Eyal. Hi and welcome, Mora Yehudis. I was just sharing with everybody that we are not utilizing linear logic when we study the Mishnah, and that we're really calling on our moral intuition, that great wisdom that we all have. And so this chapter, we've jumped ahead from just looking at Hillel and Shammai, maybe like 130 years. It's really here in this chapter, the wisdom of Yochanan Bar Zakkai and his students are established. And it's a chapter that really privileges study and lays forth some very foundational ethical and pedagogical principles. So there's my intro. I hope that was helpful. And I thought we'd just begin with the Mora Yehudis. We've already said the Torah study blessing, so if you need to say that, go right ahead. And so I thought we'd just kind of start here with I'm going to be using Sefaria. I assume everybody knows about Sefaria, and so we're going to be right here at the very beginning, where Rabbi said, which is the straight, well, actually, I'm going to pick on people to read in English. And so Daniel, would you be so kind to read this in English? And you
Sure.
can always say pass. I might ask, and we can always say pass. So Daniel, sit with Daniel. Since you're my first reader, can I
Yes.
ask you a question? Do you want to read it straight through, or do you want to read, comment, read, comment?
I'm happy to read it straight through.
Okay, let's do that, and then we'll go back. So everybody, this is what I'm going to invite you to do. One quick invitation. I'm going to invite you to, as you listen to this, since we're saying we want to approach this from a non-linear logic, allow these words to wash over you and just notice what you are attracted to. Notice what you're attracted to as you're like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, wow, I want to know more about that. And if you have pen and paper, if you have a good memory, remember it. But if not, and you have pen and paper, just kind of jot down what it is you want to go back to. And thank you for your willingness to try something, to try this. And if you don't want to try it, then thank you as well.
Rabbi said, which is the straight path that a man should choose for himself? One which is an honor to the person adopting it, and on account of which honor accrues to him from others? And be careful with the light commandment as with a grave one, for you did not know the reward for the fulfillment of the commandments. Also, reckon the loss that may be sustained through the fulfillment of a commandment against the reward accruing thereby, and the gain that may be obtained through the committing of a transgression against the loss entailed thereby. Apply your mind to three things, and you will not come into the clutches of sin. Know what there is above you, an eye that sees, an ear that hears, and all your deeds are written in a book.
Woo! There's a lot going on in there. That was a mouthful. Danielle, as you were reading it, can you share what for you either was created a bit of a conundrum or you were attracted to?
I guess, you know, this sort of idea almost that, it's like a Santa Claus thing, like somebody is counting, you know, what you're doing good and what you're not doing so good. And there's somebody there that's going to see it and going to hear it. And all your deeds are going to be counted.
Okay. And actually it's interesting, your works, your deeds will be bas sefer nichtavin. This is the word for written. This is the word for works. And this word for sefer, it's such an interesting word because it's book, but many of you know it's also number and it's also, to count. So you're so kind of right onto your comment that even this word itself holds that double entendre of in a book, but something that's being counted or numbered. And so it's a kind of Santa Claus, yet it's not quite Santa Claus. So could somebody, Daniel just shared why it's like Santa Claus. Can anybody share why it's not like Santa Claus? What's different from kind of a good, bad, simple punishment reward situation? What's the complexity here around that? Oh, by the way, guesses are fine. You don't have to be like the smartest one you don't have to be, oh, I know. You could be, moral intuition. This arises in me. So just please keep that in mind. Valerie.
Yeah, there's, talk about, well, we just don't know exactly what's a light commandment and, and what's a grave one. And we don't know what the reward is for doing it or for not doing it. So there's some ambiguity that's built into it, some uncertainty, and it gets concluded with, but yeah, it counts.
Right. All right. So it's not just so clear that you obviously know. This is there's discernment that has to occur. It's not like A-B. Again, it's not in that Aristotelian logic point of view. Thank you for that. Anne?
I'm gonna pass.
Okay.
I know this is making me think of something that happened to me today. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I have a store, but it's pretty small. And in walked like about a dozen handicapped people from I'm not even clear where they came from. There were a couple people directing them, but they're like autistic, some adults, some kids, and they started going through my music, which can easily be torn, and they're saying, "Now be careful with those." And I'm thinking, what? Do I kick these people out, or do I let them just walk around? And I don't know. Because I know a lot of shops would have told them to leave or asked them to leave, and I thought,
I love your example. I'm wondering if we can break it down. What was the reward in letting them? What were you weighing?
well, I don't. They didn't buy anything. They just, I don't know, for about 20 minutes or so, they just kind of looked around and picked things up, and I got a little nervous at one point because one of them almost knocked over a big pile of books, but no harm done. And then they said, "Gee, thanks," and left. So I don't know if I did a mitzvah there or not, but
So what value were you weighing as you were trying to
Yeah.
decide whether or not to say something?
Well, because you know, they came close to like damaging some of the merchandise. You know,
Mhm.
it was, and there was like 10 or so of them and only a couple adults kind of show, you know, keeping an eye on them. And so, in a very cramped space, because it's a very small store. And so I couldn't.
So it sounds like you were weighing generosity and kindness to the other with concern for your own personal property.
Basically, yeah.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful example. Thank you. Thank you. Um,
So,
and thank God everything turned out okay.
yeah, nothing got ruined. So, it's just,
Good.
but so I don't know. Is that
But
worth a reward? I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, it made me think about it.
Yeah, thank you. That's a beautiful example. By the way, I put the English, not the Aramaic, but I put the English in the chat in case you want to refer back to it. Miriam.
Well, I was attracted to the last sentence, which speaks to, in your actions, note that there is witness, capital W, witness, who listens and sees. I don't know if it's a who, but there is an energy field. I'd make it a little higher.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were going to the English. I was going to the
Oh,
language.
thank you. I don't know the Hebrew so well. You can
Yeah.
translate for us. Know that there's above you an eye that sees, an ear that hears. And that told me, know that as you're in your inner world, judging your behavior or measuring loss and gain, to know there is another level that has awareness and witness to our behaviors in this level. And
Beautiful.
yeah, good. Thank you.
You know, and it's very interesting because the word for know, if you actually rearrange the letters, it's the word for witness.
Ah, lovely.
So it's beautiful that you put in there. So there's this sense. So we come back to this beginning, you know, it calls this a straight path, but I think it's better to see it as derech yoshara, you know, that yosharad, sorry. It's an upright path. It's not just straight. There's a sense of upright. Because I can walk straight, but I can be totally schlumped over. But when I walk upright, it's a different energy in the world. And then the next thing it talks about is, you know, to choose a path, and they chose to look at this as honor. But the word is actually Tiferet. And I think because we just started the week of Tiferet this week and are counting, those of us who are counting through the Kabbalistic lens. This is the week, today is Chesed Shabbat Tiferet. I think it serves us to look at this word Tiferet a little bit. Now, Miriam, I know you've been in a Chavarah named Tiferet for decades.
True.
And so how would you define Tiferet?
Wow. I would define it from the experience of my Havara as a complex and beautiful effort to share love and compassion from a true place over a long time.
That's
Is
beautiful.
that
That's beautiful. That's like that's a lived experience of Tiferet. Mari Yehudas, how would you define Tiferet?
Balance or harmony. Like Mark was saying, how do I balance my personal needs with a desire to be helpful and kind?
Right. That's right, because Chesed wants to give. And Gevura wants to boundaries, discernment, judgment. And to be able to do both, it actually takes you out of the binary of that and has you look from a more complex way. That Tiferet, it's like this beauty, this harmony, this honor, this radiant care that is measured. And so, again, I think that's an important way for us to look at this, is that it's just saying, be on an upright path. How do you do that? Well, you have this sense of Tiferet. And it's a measured thing. Tiferet comes through some kind of effort. And just remember, you might think, oh, this is just a little commandment, this is a big commandment, yet you don't know. You have to treat each one. It's like, you can have a favorite mitzvah, I'm do you want to? You can have a favorite child, but is that really spiritually productive? Because we don't really know in the end, what is heavy, what is not. I think Mark gave us a really good example of this sense of, you really have to measure things. And then again, as Miriam said, no, there is above you an eye that sees. There's a lot of threes here, a lot of threes coming up in this chapter. And so I'm about to ask you all, why do you think there's so many threes? What's that about? And what about this is, our first set here, an eye that sees, an ear that hears, and all your deeds written in a book. I'd love to hear a few other new voices about that. Anne, I saw you had raised your hand again.
I'm not thinking about the threes. I was attracted to the same sentence as Miriam. And what came up for me was the presence of our inner moral knowing. So, and I'm not a good one to be interpreting what feels like it's addressing commandments from above or from God because of my Buddhist background. I just don't think or experience that way. But I don't think what came up for me was so off the mark in that you began by talking about a deep moral intuition and to call on that within ourselves and that we bring that to every moment. So when Mark was, I'm going to take liberty here, when Mark was hesitating what to do, they might rip the papers, but they deserve to be in the world. I'm putting words out that he didn't say, but that came from within and from larger vision and from compassion. So I guess my take on that last sentence about knowing is that we are the judge always in the moment. We are the eyes, we are the ears. I didn't externalize it to be a greater, I actually was thinking, know that above, I was thinking, well, is that referring to our higher self, our higher knowing? Anyway, that was it.
Well, you bring up a conundrum here. You bring up a conundrum, and I'm lucky. I was studying this morning with a true master, living master, who addressed this issue. And if I wouldn't have anything smart to say about this if he had not just said these words to me this morning. I was studying with Rabbi Ira Stone, who is a Musar master and founder of the the Center for Contemporary Musar. Yes, this moral intuition that we all have is absolutely essential. And we have to remember something. We have to remember that the Mishnah is an oral law. It is an oral law that has come from above to below, and that our lives are about measuring this oral law with this internal moral intuition process that is connected to our own becoming. He said something very interesting this morning, and I might look up my notes just in case. But we were talking about what makes Judaism truly unique. What really makes Judaism unique? And he said it is our adherence to law. There's a way in which we have law where law actually is legislating. Hold on, I do want to pick up my notes because I want to honor my teacher appropriately. Where he said that the emphasis in Judaism on the ethical, we wrestle with we're all about wrestling with the relationship between ethics, that internal moral intuition, and law. And Judaism insists, you can like it, you can not like it, you can argue it, but in the end, there's an insistence that the ethical be ensconced in the legal. And that Judaism affirms that law is the appropriate carrier of the ethical covenant that we have. So the system.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, that we affirm that law is the appropriate carrier of the ethical covenant. And adherence to this is important. The system has a process, and of course it needs modification and shaping over time. But his point of view is that an essence of Judaism is you can't abandon law in favor of the moment. It has to be, that root into the law always has to exist. And that law, in Judaism, law guides human activity and relationship. In the modern age, I want to just say quickly, and then we can open that up, because this was an unexpected stone. That was a pun because it was Rabbi Ira Stone. This was an unexpected stone thrown into this class. But I think it's worth pondering our own relationship to law and how we resonate with it, and how important it is for Dor Vidor Judaism. Ruth.
Okay. Well, I want to go back to Mark's example, and maybe give a counterpoint, especially in light of what you're saying about the law. And perhaps in this case, I wouldn't see it so much as the law, but just an idea of respecting other people's property. I would not have hesitated one bit to go up to these kiddos, whoever they might be or whatever they were doing, to really convey to them how valuable that is to me and how important it is, and how the lesson to be learned is about valuing other people's
Yeah.
space.
That's interesting.
There's just no way I would have just jumped on it.
Yeah.
Interesting point. Mark, you want to counter that?
It's interesting because these were all people who had cognitive and emotional problems, and they probably wouldn't have even understood what I was trying to say if I tried to do that.
I missed that part.
I did a little bit to a couple of them, but yeah. So anyway, just another.
Maybe I would have been more gentle, but I still would have said, gently, this is,
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It's just that, that thing that, what if you're encountering someone who can't understand?
Well, there you go. And here we go back to an eye that sees, an ear that hears.
Yeah.
What we have to take in a situation is my eye seeing correctly, or am I seeing through assumptions? Is my ear hearing correctly, or do I have, again, assumptions? Do I know what has to happen for your eye and your ear to be trustworthy in the moment and not filled with your own biases or fears, etc.? I think that's part of the wisdom here. And what I really get from this all here, this part of it is, again, it's not black and white. We have to weigh these things out in order to achieve to ferret. We have to weigh things out. We have to go, well, what's loving here? What is a good boundary? Going back and forth and allowing ourselves these processes so that the eye that sees and the ear that hears is trustworthy. And it's all going to be recorded, y'all, for better or worse.
Yeah, Sharon, I was going to say, Mom, it's the same point, because use the word way, and in this week's parsha, it talks about something kind of strange. If one of the laws of the Torah that a person should not have false weights, not even possess them, never mind use them, in a distorted way. But the idea is have some internal objective standard by which you compare, you weigh, you evaluate situations, even though you personally, subjectively might go along with it or not. But it's very important to have that clear, objective standard.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful.
Question, is the word that it says no, is that da'at?
It's da. This is like Mishnaic, Aramaic-y, Mishnaic. So the word is daled ayin, da.
Ayin. But I do think of the on the Sphirot, the da'at, as a moral awareness, consciousness, intuition from that higher supernal triangle.
Beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well, and that relates directly, and thank you, and to what we're knowing, how we know. What do we use to have that moral compass? I think it's that sphera.
That's beautiful. Look, I feel like there's plenty more that we can say here. I have a few I want to look at. I know we have, I thought maybe we'd be 15, 20 minutes a sentence. Do you want to explore? There's so much more. There's always more to explore. Or do y'all want to move on? Does anybody have a feeling or thought?
Well, I would say I'm interested in looking at that last sentence, and it seems like a threat.
All your deeds are written in a book.
Well, the whole thing, no.
Santa's going to know if you're naughty or nice because he's writing it on his list.
Right. So is this a gentle reminder that we need to keep all of this decision making and do the right thing all of the time? It just seems an interesting way that it's been written.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about this book for a second. I first of all want to tell you, don't think I know anything about this book, but I think about it a lot. This book of life, y'all, every Chagim, the book of life is open and then the book of life closes, but everything is being written in the book all the time. I have a lot of guesses about it, but I'd love to hear any collective wisdom here about this Sefer. And again, I want to remind everybody that the complexity of this word is just unbelievable. This word, it just has, to write, to count, to be counted. In the PL, it's to cut or shear. It's like sapphire, this beautiful sapphire. A sofer, so Ferret, one who writes in the book, it's a very remarkable, look at this here, Safar, a boundary, something that kind of separates this from that. Again, nobody has to be smart here about this. What do you know or even assume about this book?
Well,
We talked
you-
about.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Wait.
you reminded me of
Oh, hold on, Mark.
something which I thought
Mark-
before, but anyway, okay.
Mark, let's because we'd like everybody's voice. So Eyal
Yeah,
first.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hi, so I was gonna say, so regarding like just the etymology, I guess we also have, like, we talk about sefer, meaning having the root of both book and also like telling a story and also counting. But we also have that in English where we say we can count, but we can also recount a tale, right? So it seems like there's maybe there's like a cross-cultural multilingual thing about counting and stories being tied. But when I read Sefer there, like the first book I think of is, you know, the book that we all hope to be written into in Yom Kippur, right? When we think about things like that. And then I wanted to comment just a little thing about know that the watchful eye and the attentive ear sounds ominous if you're committing sins, but if you're doing mitzvot, it sounds really nice to know that someone is noticing all this good stuff you're doing, right? Just sounds like appreciation. So I guess how you take it depends on what frame of mind you might be in.
Right, right. How do you feel about somebody over your shoulder watching every move? Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you for that. Love that. Somebody else, but okay, Mark.
Oh, it was something, you know, when you were talked about the threes, and I thought there's something about there's seeing, there's hearing, the two ways in which we perceive the universe, the physical world, and then there's writing, which is neither one and is a separate kind of reality.
It's kind of an integration of something. You know,
Yeah.
you can see you here, but writing, you're now integrating because you're making meaning of what you've seen or heard.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And it's also giving a permanence to what happened. Because seeing and hearing can be, you know, just go away. But if something is written, the impact is there.
Yeah. It's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, the impact. I love that. So there's two. Well, anybody else first before I say anything? Anne. You're muted.
I have a very beginner's question. So I'm going back to what you said earlier about the uniqueness of Judaism, that we adhere to law. So what is the body of discussion and consideration of law? Isn't it kind of ongoing among the what is that called?
What is that actually
That
called?
makes it not cut in stone, but there's Jewish law, and then there's the discussion of how to consider it. No?
I mean, in you know what it was called and what it is called is a little bit different. I mean, it was the Gemara, the conversation about the Mishnah, the oral law, you know, that makes up the Talmud, that, you know, it was called that. Okay, here's this. And then the halacha would come out of that. The halacha meaning here's the you know, the codification.
Or literally the way to go.
Yeah, because the word halakha comes from the word to walk. So how you walk. Now there are various processes of how to do that, and the various movements have their processes of how they respond. We create responsum. How they responsum are responses to, okay, how are we going to look at this today? And responses will come out through various movements.
Yeah.
It is a living process.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
It has to be a living process. Reb Zalman, he was really into this. He's like, we need a different kind of halachic process for the modern age. And he wrote a book called Integral Halacha, which is a very clear process. It's one of my favorite books, by the way. And it's a very specific legal process for a modern age. It's a modern age halachic process.
Thank you.
And please God, I hope it becomes a strong living process within the Olive Seminary. That's a different conversation.
This
Yeah.
it reminds me of this conversation I had with maybe Rosh Hashanah 2 years ago, something like that, with some people. We were talking about the oral law and how we might have lost something when we wrote it down, because the whole idea was that it was oral, and so it could kind of evolve as we went. And the example he gave was like there were certainly Jews living on a boat at some point, and we don't have any record of how you keep Shabbat while living on a boat. But it probably existed, but maybe because we wrote stuff down, we sort of lost our ability to adjust and keep up with the times, and have an oral law that is like words. They evolve over time. So it's nice to hear that there's this effort to maybe kind of recreate this idea of let's have a tradition, like an oral passed down evolving tradition, and not just one frozen in time.
Yeah, well, if we froze our law in time, we'll lose our relevancy. We'll lose our juice. I mean, that's anyway from my point of view. I want to go back to this idea of the book. This book that holds the record. There are two, what's that word? Underlying factors for their, in this book that I want to name. The first one is that what you do and what you say matters. In fact, the word for thing is the same as the word for matter. Daled Beit Resh. Word like Devar Torah, word. But it's also the word for matter or thing. What you say matters. And then here's the second point that Mora Yehudis brought up that I'll reiterate. And the impact of that is something that you are responsible for. How you perceive, how you perceive. And then the way you stance yourself in the world, it matters. And it will be recorded. Now, here's the good thing about it being recorded. And I'm going to share with you a teaching from one of my teachers, Sarah Yehudit Schneider, that just really moved me. If something is recorded, then you have the opportunity to go back, because we can't remember every single thing. Do you remember what you said October 17th, 1984? Anybody? Now, wait, I have to think. Can I remember what I did October 17th, 1984? I was in Boulder. Miriam, maybe you and I had coffee that day for all I know. But, yet I'll say something. Maybe, Miriam, you and I had coffee on October 17th, 1984. And I said something to you that hurt your feelings. And then we didn't, God forbid. And then you remembered it forever, but I forgot it. Well, if it's written in a book, there's the ability to go back to it and create a teshuvah on it. Anything that's
Amen.
recorded means we have the opportunity to do a teshuvah. And doing a teshuvah, what that does is gives us the opportunity to grow our soul and to be fully accountable. Sarah Yehudit once taught that she didn't like politically correct language. Because oftentimes politically correct, this could be controversial. If so, let me have it. Don't hold back. I trust you all for that. but do it with a good eye. Oftentimes when people say something politically correct, they're not being honest about what they really think. They're dancing around it. And she says when that happens, it's recorded in the book as a blur. And when it's recorded as a blur, we never have the opportunity to rectify it. There's something beautiful about this thought that we can go back and fix, repair things that we missed the mark on. That makes me happy. So I'm wondering how that lands for people. Ruth, what do you think? How did that land for you?
I think it landed really nicely. I liked it. You know, I was thinking about something else though, which is the idea of, and I always share this in the Shaharit on Tuesday services about a lot of Judaism seems to make the assumption that everyone is, you know, has decision-making power. And there are lots of folks who don't have that. You know, when you think about people who didn't have the ability or the freedom to make decisions on their own, but who were under the power of some political system or any victim or whatever. So that sort of sometimes gets lost in me. But as someone who does have decision-making power, I like that, the fact that I can go back and fix anything. There's a whole lot to fix.
You and me both. You and me both. All right, I think I'm going to move this
Can I
along.
say one thing?
But
Yeah,
first,
yeah.
please.
I think another aspect of being written in a book is it can resolve conflicts. Like in sports, we have instant replay, and that objective picture shows which was the person out or were they safe. And without that, the conflict can go on and on without end, without resolution.
Exactly. Good. So may you be comforted by the fact these things are written in a book, because you have the opportunity to continue to learn, grow, and make it right. So let's take it as good news. Daniel? You are so muted, and so none of it's being recorded in the book.
Sorry about that. I was thinking about this past Shabbat. You know, I almost think of this recorded in a book as almost like your own conscience of how things get buried in your conscience. And you know, I was thinking it was my mother's yahrzeit this past Shabbat, and as I was thinking about her, you know, I could remember. So, and she passed away 39 years ago, so it's not like this happened yesterday. But I can remember a hurtful thing that I had done to her in my 20s, in my youth, shall we say. And it's recorded in my conscience. I can't, and I wouldn't say I can't go back and make that better, even if it's recorded in a book. But in a way, you know, I felt that just thinking about it, and in a way repenting for it, in a way, it made me feel better. I don't know if it made her feel better, but it did make me feel better. So I do see it in that way as almost like our own conscience.
Beautiful. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. And I want to remind you that the soul doesn't care about time and space.
Right.
So you can trust that.
Thank you.
I'm still a bit confused here. So back in 1980 something there, you hurt Miriam's feelings.
God forbid. But yeah.
By example, yeah. And hopefully she forgave you. But who's looking at the book? And how did you remember? And did Miriam come to you and say that was hurtful? Or did she say, it's okay, we're friends, we'll pass it along? So this whole aspect of a book is okay, but I want to know who's looking at it and how I get back to what was written and see if I can do something about it.
Excellent question. Excellent question. Thank you. Thank you for your pragmatic approach to this situation. You took it out of metaphor and into pragmatics. The tradition will tell you that it's God that's looking at the book. It's part of the accounting of your soul. Yet now we come back to that deep moral intuition that each of us have. And something that Daniel was just saying, there's so much recorded in our unconscious that we can access through a variety of ways and techniques. And so let's go back to Miriam. Do you mind I'm picking on you for this? Okay. So I should have asked permission first. I'm sorry. So let's say we're like hanging out and I notice something cold between us. That might give me pause to go in and check. Do I have access to something? There is, information comes through conversation, through intuitions, through body sensations, through spilkies, through dreams. There's a whole variety. The point here would be that I care enough about the relationship that I'm going to track what's happening between us. And if something feels off, then I'm going to dig and find out why. Is that helpful?
Well, I can see that, but I'm just taking another track that you've forgotten all about it, because as far as you're concerned, I didn't say anything that could be taken as a miss. So now the responsibility falls on Miriam, really. So she has a choice. She either says, it's gone, it's fine, it was nothing. Or she said, I'm going to change my attitude.
Right.
So this gets to be very tricky. And I think, as Daniel said, maybe this all comes down to conscience and thinking what you're saying and what you're doing all of the time. And if it doesn't sound right, don't say it. Right. So I'm just
beautiful. Back to the discernment. How do you have this to ferret towards somebody? You weigh things and you discern. If you do that, you might not be making progress for yourself.
So I think it's a very minor point, and I think you've spoken and addressed it, and hopefully Miriam hasn't taken umbrage at the comment back in the 1980s. But it just, it's, you really have to think about what you're saying, right?
Yes, beautiful. And not only think about what you're saying, but care about your impact.
And
right.
I want to add, we care about each other is real.
Yeah.
I line for the use of me as an example.
Yeah, that's only because I've known her for so long. When I picked the date, and then I was like, oh, wait a second, I knew her back then. So that's where that came from. We actually did know each other on October 17th, 1984.
And we could have had coffee.
I didn't have money for coffee back then. I was a single mother. Okay, so you guys, I'd like to move on. And I'd like to move forward into I think this is where I want to go. This is getting towards the end. We have here, let's go here with starting with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Allegedly, he was the one that was carried out of Jerusalem in a box and brought things to Yavne. Like, he's kind of the bridge, if you will, from the temple culture to the, how Judaism developed without a temple. And he was direct students of Hillel and Shammai. So we're going to look at here, he had 5 different disciples. And I thought we'd start with listing their outstanding virtues. And then I wanted to go into the next one about them talking about what they think was so important. So let's see, whose voice have I not heard at all? And I'm trying to remember, I forgot your first name is Franklin.
It's Heilwen.
Kiowan. Would you be so kind as to read starting with here?
With names just like mine. He,
Yeah,
Rabbi
nice.
Yochanan, used to list their outstanding virtues. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hirkanus is a plastered cistern which loses not a drop. Rabbi Joshua ben Hananiah, happy is the woman that gave birth to him. Rabbi Yos, the priest, is a pious man. Rabbi Simeon ben Nahanil is one that fears sin. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach is like a spring that gathers force. He, Rabbi Yonahan, used to say, if all the sages of Israel were on one scale of the balance, and Rabbi Eliezer bar Hirkanus on the other scale, he would outweigh them all. Abba Shaul said in his name, if all the sages of Israel were on one scale of the balance, and Rabbi Eliezer bar Hirkanus also with them, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach on the other scale, he would outweigh them all.
Thank you. So is there something there that you want to say attracts you in what we just read? And let me just say it, it's Heulwen.
Oh, it's Heilwen.
Heilwen. Beautiful name.
Thank
It
you.
sounds Dutch. Is that Dutch?
No, it's Welsh.
Welsh. Okay, Heilwen. Yeah, so is there anything there that stood out for you?
The weighing of one person against another, I suppose.
Yeah, why was that even necessary, huh?
Well, I suppose some people are more, I wouldn't say useful, than others, or more beneficial or more influential. Some people are more influential than others.
Right, right. Yeah, so it's kind of looking at these five men and looking at various gifts they have. They all have gifts. They all have a point of view. They all have something special to offer. And for some, and some have more influence than others. It's funny you would say that because I taught an hour and a half, like literally international webinar today on the ethics of charisma. What are the ethics of those who have more influence from others? So I'm really like into this topic right now. And so that's a really good question. So we have twos. And by the way, one is Eleazar and the other one is Eliezer. And, you know, there are subtle differences there in the names. So we've got our two Ellies who are kind of like, all of them are great, but two are being kind of weighed against each other. And somebody has an opinion of one is more influential and somebody has an opinion the other one is. And so the two things is, one is a plastered cistern that does not lose a drop. I'm going to put the English in the chat. What does that mean?
He's got a mind like a steel trap.
Okay, all right. That's good. He's got a mind like a steel trap. Yeah, good. Anything else?
It's
This
been
is like
treated.
yeah. This is like an almost not quite common, but it's a known phrase in Hebrew, right? Bol sud she'eno mebet tipa. It's like a well that's painted or plastered so that it doesn't lose any drops, or like a cistern, I guess. So I guess the idea is that just like everything you heard, he remembered. He didn't like leak.
Right. And why are they doing it like what, like, you know, they're using kind of water. Let's remember that Torah is often considered to be like water. And so what he's holding and not losing is at a high level regarding to his relationship with Torah. What is this is like a spring that ever gathers force. Notice both of them are water images. Valerie.
Yeah, so the time period that we're looking at is after the destruction of the temple. And so there's tremendous urgency to retain all this precious knowledge and to circle the wagons and to try and protect this precious life-giving stuff. And you contrast that to, wait a minute, we're going to need new water. We're in a new situation. And we need to, yes, we need that, but we're also going to need this living infusion.
I not only do I love what you're saying, but you inspired me to think of it this way. There is both an open mem and a closed mem. We have to have something that holds water so it doesn't get out, and we have to have something that allows water to flow. I always look at the mem, by the way, as kind of this is kind of like the spout that the water pours out from, and see, you can just kind of like pick it up by the little handle that you can't really see to pour the water. So we have a sense that in this post-temple period, you also have to be able to contain what we've known, but we have to flow forward into the future. Or as Reb Zalman would say, based upon, that came out of different literature, you have to transcend yet include. And both of that is held with the virtues of these two men. What do you think of that? Does that kind of make some sense? That's beautiful, Valerie. Thank you for that. So, all right, so let's go here now. And let's see, Miriam, will you read this for us? You're completely muted, by the way.
Thank you. Again, he, Rabbi Yochanan, said unto them, go forth and observe which is the right way to which a man should cleave.
Okay, I know I said we're gonna let this all read, but let me just say a couple things about this.
Sure.
This right way here again is kind of that upright path that we were looking at earlier. And this word for cleave, it's an important word, and it became very important in Hasidic literature because it's got this word here, shayidavak. It's got that word devek, which means to cleave. It means glue, and it's the word that's used that really kind of attaches ourselves. The Hasids really went with this, but others as well, that it really attaches ourselves to God. And yeah, so go forth, and it's like, and by the way, you've got here the word for see. Here's your I word. And you've got this word, which is going to be your, let's see. So to go forth and observe, see which is the right way. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to point that out. Go on, please.
No problem. Go forth and cleave. Rabbi Eliezer said, a good eye. Rabbi Joshua said, a good companion. Rabbi Yosef said, a good neighbor. Rabbi Shimon said foresight. Rabbi Eliezer said a good heart.
And by the
He,
way,
Rabbi Yochanan,
I don't like that translation. It's lev
oh, good.
tahor. Lev
It's
tahor, a pure,
ah,
pure heart.
that's very different. Good clarity. He, Rabbi Yochanan, said to them, I prefer the words of Eliezer ben Arach, for his words, your words are, for in his words, your words are included. He, Rabbi Yochanan, said unto them, go forth.
Let's stop right there. Let's stop there. Let's
A
stop
lot
there.
in that first part.
Yeah, we're looking here at these five, you have Rebbe Eliezer, he's your cistern, closed cistern guy. He says a good eye, a good companion, a chaver, a good neighbor, forethought. Hold on, shachen, yeah, that seeing, it's almost just this seeing into the, seeing what's coming, if you will. And if correct me, anybody can correct me on my Aramaic there if you need to. And Rabbi Elazar said a good heart. And he's like, yeah, he nailed it. The lev tahor. So I want you to think of those five things. And why do you think Rabbi Yochanan liked this lev tahor over all things? What is this concept of lev tahor? And what about it? Like, there's so much, lev tahor, like it's such an amazing concept. What is the value of a pure heart in this world?
A lev tahor includes all the others.
Well, that's what Rabbi Yochanan said.
It seems, as I understand it, also.
Left tahor for me is left tahor is someone who is listening to the other.
Say more, Esther.
Everyone that true listening to the other. We don't listen to one another eventually, unfortunately. So it's just the left tahor. If you think with your heart, not with your head, that's the better way to go.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful. And having a pure heart means you have to have deep listening. And yeah, that's good. Anybody else? This lev tahor. Or Yehudas, I feel like you could spend the next year talking about lev tahor. Will you just give us a shtickle?
Well, I was just basing on what Esther was saying, that I was thinking of the story with King Solomon when he was a little boy, or a young boy. He had this dream, and he was offered like three choices what he wanted to have: great wisdom, long life, or riches. And he chose wisdom because he felt that also included all the others. And when he woke up, he also, his request was actually, "V'nasata la'avdecha lev shomea," please God, give your servant a heart that hears. And I love that term also, lev shomea, a listening heart. So I think that's exactly what Esther was referring to.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean,
where did you find the lev shomea in the?
It's in Tanakh. It's in Melachim. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lev tahor. We're coming in as Reb Zalman used to say, we're coming in for a landing. So I thought we'd go to the very last sentence here. I love this sentence. Esther, do you want to read this for us in the English?
English, yeah, I like the Hebrew, but that's okay.
Okay, go ahead, read it for us.
הוא היה אומר, לא עליך המלאכה לגמור, ולא אתה בן חורין לבטל ממנה. אם למדת תורה הרבה, נותנים לך שכר הרבה, ונאמן הוא בעל מלאכתך שישלם לך שכר פעולתך. הקפדה מתן שכרן של צדיקים לעתיד לבוא. Wow, it's a good one.
Oh, this is a great one. This is a great, great, great one. Valerie, will you read it for us in English?
Rabbi Tarfon used to say, "It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to neglect it. If you have studied much Torah, you shall be given much reward. Faithful is your employer to pay you the reward of your labor, and know that the grant of reward unto the righteous is in the age to come."
Amen.
All right. So there's a lot here. I mean, this first sentence here, this is a very famous sentence.
Yes.
Very, very famous sentence. I think we all probably have a relationship to it, that just because it's big, you don't have to finish it, but you have to do your part. You got to chip away at it. You just gotta. But I'm wondering, I'm going to put this into the English. I mean, this into the chat in case, what do you think? Here's a question you're probably not expecting. What ties these things together? Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as when you're doing something. I'll give just an example of something that I did today, which is composting. You know, I went and our town has a self-service compost where you can go and compost your scraps. I don't have any real sense in some big way that that's going to change the world. But that I feel like I should do my own little part. And I'm not sensing that I'm going to get any reward for it, but the reward will be in the age to come. That hopefully when my time comes, that'll be written in that book that I composted, and that it will be recognized at some point way in the future. So that's how I see it.
Beautiful. I like that. Thank you so much. That's just such a really practical example. Thank you. Good, very insightful. Somebody else want to add to that?
I want to answer that.
Oh, goody.
My sense was, although I'm a huge composter there, Dan, so I'm with you, but I really think that this is bringing to mind the situation in Israel, in Gaza, in our schools. I'm a professor, I teach at Metro, and they're having a lot of things happening there, a lot of students. It just feels like one of those things that, one individual can't finish, but it also can't be neglected. And to find a way to do your part in whatever that means to you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's like, and in the end, that reward will come. We might not see it. We might not know it. There's a real invitation to trust it though. But in the middle, between like the overwhelm and like, let me just plug away at this, and the final like redemption or reward or whatever it is, don't forget, study and make money. Making parnasa is holy. We're very practical that way. I remember, I saw Reb Zalman quite frequently in his last few years, and every third or fourth visit, he'd be like, "And how's the parnasa coming along? How you doing?" Because that concern to be sure that you're having what you need to to have your basics met is so core and important to us. So have your parnasa in order, but study. And excuse me, please, as we're like waiting for that final reward redemption, you got to plug away, do the best you can, create your own tikkun. But yeah, don't forget, I mean, look at y'all right now. You're here, you're studying Torah. That's exactly what you're doing. Do you have to? No. But that place inside of you that's drawn to this is, may this be the sweetest thing you had all day long. I know sitting with you for this hour has been delightful for me. Very robust discussion. A lot of new faces for me in the Pirkei Avot world. So I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.